Okay, everybody, welcome to this morning's Saturday Fife Property Show. Okay, now today we're going to be talking about, it's quite a complex subject here. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be applicable to Scotland. It's about the price isn't right, how to stop and spot your home being overvalued. Now, you wouldn't think that would be a problem in Scotland with home reports existing, but it still goes on. And we're going to discuss throughout the show. I've got Jimmy on today and I've got Andrea on today. We're going to discuss on the show exactly how that happens and how to spot that and how to then put the person on the spot and actually ask them the salient questions in order to identify if that's happening with you or not. Because often, I'll be honest and upfront about this, often some estate agents can deliberately overvalue a home when they're sitting with you. And then when the surveyor comes round to do the home report, they go, well, it was the surveyor that said. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm committed to you because you told me that was the value. And then all of a sudden the surveyor comes round and says it's a bit less. It's like, I feel duped. And that still does happen, doesn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, it happens all the time. That or they're in a rush to sell, but get drawn in by a high price. Then all of a sudden you see reduce. But yeah, we'll go a bit more into detail.
Prices themselves are still rising, but very few homes are on the market. And it seems incredible that 1 in 20 asking prices were slashed in May. I mean, you know, that's technically only about 5%. The figures from Zoopla show an average price drop, an average drop of 9% or 22,500, and the biggest discount margin for 18 months. Here we go. It's like run for the hills. It's like we're using statistics here, so just be careful about statistics. You know what they say about lies, damn lies, and statistics. So beware of statistics and how people use them, and actually they have to be taken into account with other statistics as well in other situations. Probably a classic example is right now it's the biggest rise in interest rates for the last, since the pandemic. And it's like everybody's going, oh my God, it's been the biggest rise in interest rates. But what does that mean? It's still the lowest interest rates it was for the last 20 years. So or whatever. It's like, so we'll have to get that in context. It's maybe the biggest multiplier it has been for earnings to valuation of house since the credit crunch. But it is still the average lowest mortgage rate ever. In the credit crunch, it was 7.5%. Now it's 1.8%. So context is everything. You can say something in a soundbite quite easily, but you can actually, if it's not backed up with another figure, it leaves it open to your interpretation. And the first thing, and human beings, the first thing they do is we're fearful. That's the first thing we do all the time, isn't it? We run for the hills. It's the fight or fight response. So house prices, here it is though, here's the next bit out of just what I've said. House prices rose by 11.2% year on year in May. Slightly down from the 12% in April to April, but it's still a substantial increase. So why are homes being reduced in price? Unfortunately, overvaluing has been used more and more to get homes on the market. Differences of opinion of a few percentage between estate agents are perfectly normal, but the need for more stock is seeing homes hit the market and price tags of 20% or more above their likely value. Now, this is what happens right along the UK, particularly in England, but because we've got home reports, that's a wee bit more curtailed in how we're doing it. So let's talk about this, Jimmy. A recent example for you, Jimmy, is you went out and someone said, well, I went with them because they valued the house £10,000 more. But the surveyor came in, and what happened next?
To the price that I said, but what you got to get drawn into is what the estate agent says necessarily on the price. We can give you the figure, but the surveyor dictates the home report value. People selling in Scotland should be making their decision on who's going to market the property the best, get seen by the widest audience, and ultimately negotiate the best price. Because the surveyor dictates the value, and there's
if I'm right, the home report value will be the home report value. based on comparables and similar properties sold in the area, or it should be, shouldn't it? But
Yeah,
often an estate agent has a wee bit of influence there.
I would say so, or maybe sales that haven't completed in the area, but they know there's a sale price. Like before I go out, I would say all my valuations. I always run it by a surveyor just to make sure I'm on point, because I don't want to be giving anybody false hope.
Yeah.
And I always speak to the surveyor and say, I'm going out to this is the accommodation. I'm using comparables X, Y, Z. And he'll either say, yeah, that's right, or I think you're a bit light, or I think you're a bit high. And then I'll go and see the property and show them the comparables, have a look around and discuss where I think it is in terms of the home report and the tools that we'll use to try and get X on the end result, or where I could see it being the end result with what they have.
Okay, so that means ideally, I would read off of that then is when an estate agent gives you a valuation as a seller, the first thing you should be asking them is, where did that valuation come from? Where's the comparables? Or is it just a figure you plucked out the air because you thought, yeah, that's what I think it is?
Exactly. Different one from what we were just talking about there. I was out to one. I won't say where it is because it's on the market right now. I went out to the property. I met one half of the family. I told them the number, showed them the evidence why it was the number. She was happy with it there. I then followed up with the other half of the family that wasn't there at the appointment. And he said, I agree with your valuation, but the other half of the family don't. They think it's low. I said, what was about the evidence they didn't understand? And he said, I just think they think it's worth more, but I totally understand where you're coming from. But it's now on the market with a different agent, 45 grand more than what I valued at, and another agent, and they gone with the other agent.
Wow, that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. It'll be interesting to see if that changes. I actually recently, one in Cellar Dyke for me, actually went out to and I valued it, and they've now had to drop it by £50,000. Yeah, you heard it. They've now had to drop it by £50,000 because it's not selling. And originally, I'd actually said the valuation is it now, but they just wouldn't listen at the time. But that, so it's often a thing that people do, estate agents do, in order to get a listing, is just to overvalue the property. And actually, then what the next thing you hear is continuous all the time. You usually tend to hear, Andrea, what's the words? I think you should drop your price. I think you should drop your price. I think you should drop your price. Till it comes at the price that everybody else said in the first place.
Do a price realignment.
Yeah.
And then start remarketing again.
Price realignments are okay, but dropping your price continually all the time means that you're actually when an estate agent says to you, I think you should drop your asking price, what they're meaning is, we got the valuation wrong in the first place. When they say, I think you should realign your price, what they're actually saying is, there's a different strategy here, we're going to adopt that first. So one's giving away the value, one's actually repositioning yourself in order to add that value back on at the end. So putting yourself into a different buyer category. I mean, doing that has been very successful in the past. For if there's maybe been even just sort of £5,000 is causing people not to want to view a property. If you realign the price to just under that, and you get loads of people in the door, very often it goes to a closing date, and you get much more value at the end of it for your. Yeah, we've actually demonstrated that quite a lot.
Yeah,
I mean the price is quite flattering. It doesn't get you moved. The initial high can soon descend into anxiety, disappointment, and irritation. So how can you tell if your home's been valued correctly, or whether your home's been put at unnecessary risk? That's actually quite a bold statement there. Actually saying that you're because it's not valued correctly, you're putting your home at unnecessary risk. And we'll explain what we mean by that. So the price of asking too much. I mean, it may seem tempting, here we go, to try a higher price just in case you find someone willing and financially able to pay over the odds. But there are very real consequences when agents suggest you market your home at an inflated price. I've actually had that where the home report, I've inquired about a property and the home report is actually less than the asking price. And I'm like, hello, You know, what planet do you think I'm on, thinking that, you know, you've got it 10,000 over what the home report value is? I would never buy that property because it's clear expectation that you're wanting them to pay more. I mean, you know, give me the home report value in the beginning and then let me assess from there what it's worth to me rather than actually tell me, because it distracts people, doesn't it?
It does, because people have to remember that the home report valuation is what you will get in a mortgage for that property. Anything above that, you have to be able to find that money yourself.
I mean, it also loses you inquiries from buyers. It takes you into another search band. If you've got your property, for example, a classic example of that is if your property is valued at 330,000, I would be putting it on at 325. And the reason I put it on at 325 is because that's the search band on Rightmove, and it's the search band on Zoopla as well. So it's everything from 300 to 325. It catches it in there. So if you put it at 330, you miss everybody up to the 325 level, but you actually get everybody from 325. If you put it on 325, you get everybody up to 325, you get everybody after 325. So 325 to 350 is the next level. So that's the kind of thing I'll be thinking about in terms of where that property fits in the search criteria in order to, so you don't lose out on inquiries. Missing out on homes to buy because you haven't yet accepted an offer. That's another way of actually having your price too high in the beginning. It's sacrificing all the benefits as a seller's market and risking your home looking stale instead of fresh. That often happens, Jimmy. But we had one. Remember in St Andrews, was it? You know, it was on the market for 6 months, and that was the reservation we had, wasn't it? And so what happened with that one?
Well, it ended up selling for more.
Sorry?
It ended up selling for more.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Now, here's the key here. We do say about that, sometimes it could be sacrificing all the benefits of a seller's market and risking your home looking stale instead of fresh. But what we failed to take into account in this statement, remember I'm saying about sound bites altogether, what we failed to take into account in that statement is the fact that in Fife, 20 people every single day make a decision to buy or sell a property, buy and sell a property, because more than likely they're selling it, you're going to be buying. So 20 people every single day. So even though your home sits on the market for 6 months, for example, every single day, 20 people are making a decision whether to buy. And it might be just the case that your home, the buyer isn't in the market at that time when you put it on the market. Because what you're doing is trying to coincide with the exact buyer coming on at the same time. How could you do that? That's a dark art. Unless you're using a catch-all system, whereas you just hope for the best and you underprice it in the first place in order to get as much people in the door and then hope that you'll actually get somebody that'll actually bite at that point in time. But even if it was at a higher price, think about this, even if it was at the higher price, if that person's on the market even at the lower price, they'll not buy it because they're not there. That makes sense.
That happened with me actually. So I can speak from experience when I was selling my house in Newborough.
You're a good estate agent though.
Oh dear. Plug. You know, the house was on the market for quite a long time. It was a one-off house. I mean, it had been very difficult to value in the first place. Because there wasn't another house like it. I think it may potentially had been a bit overvalued. We did have a price reduction, but the people that eventually bought it, they had been waiting for a buyer for their property. And as soon as they got their buyer, they'd had their eye on my house for the whole time it had been on the market.
Yeah, but they just didn't want to commit.
Yeah, they weren't in that position
because they felt that they couldn't do that because they weren't in the position. So for a buyer out there, just one bit of advice: if you're a buyer out there and you feel you want to be in that position where you think I'm not in a position to do anything, I'll not inquire about that property just now, even though it's my dream home. Inquire about it. And the reason I say that is because you don't know what you don't know, and you'd be surprised what a really good experienced estate agent can do for you in terms of helping you get a buyer for your property. It's often before what I've done is I've looked at another person's property on with another agent and actually given them the right advice for that other agent in order to change their photographs and to change their initial description and to look at and review their price point if that's the case as well, and actually give them the best advice in order to get their house sold so they can buy my house. That's the whole point. That's what we do as estate agents, or that's what we should be doing. That's the most important point, because the most important person to us is our seller. We're contracted to do that. So I'm going to do everything possible to get a buyer and put a buyer in a position to buy my seller's house. That's all it comes down to. So if you're on with another estate agent, or you're thinking, or you're not in that, you're not even at the beginning of the process, then please inquire anyway with any estate agent, because you don't know what they're going to be able to do for you. Because again, it comes back to the stage, you don't know what you don't know, do you?
Exactly. Don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah. Oh, so even if you secure a buyer at a monumental price, there's a high risk of your home being downvalued when the mortgage. There's another one as well, isn't it? I've seen this in the past. I mean, not recently, just now, because there's a boom market just now, and it's still continuing to boom. I mean, you know, you can't say that 11.2% year-on-year increase in price on average isn't a boom market, because it certainly is. That's double digit still. So there's still a boom in the market, but in the past, what we found is in more challenging markets, and this is great because this is a good show for overall, because people can watch this later on and still get more good advice out of this, even in markets where it's more challenging. What's happened is, even though you sold it at that price, the surveyors come in for the bank and actually sit for their mortgage and actually said, I actually think it's about 10,000 lower. Oh, that puts you in a difficult position, doesn't it? You were just saying that, Andrea, weren't you? And the fact that, you know, it's the home report or the valuation is where you'll get the mortgage on.
Yeah, I do remember I actually worked with another company, and I was for a while, and I was selling new builds in quite an expensive area in Perthshire, and the builder had actually overinflated the price so much. I mean, you were talking about £600,000-700,000 houses. And then the mortgage, somebody wanted to buy one. They managed to get quite a big discount from the builder.
Yeah.
But the mortgage company still could not find the value in that property to get it up to nearly where people wanted to pay for it. And they pulled out.
Because they're doing exactly the same as we do, as what the surveyors do, is we actually look at what's been sold, similar types of properties in the area. And if you can't get it to match up, it causes a problem. I do remember back in the credit crunch, I remember going for a mortgage. And at the credit crunch times, it actually went through three different people in the lender's criteria. And I was only after a 70 grand mortgage. And it's like, you know, I could have paid that in cash at that time. But they seem to have a problem, because obviously they couldn't find comparables at that time because of the drop in the market to suggest that it was worth that. So their system, it actually went through three different audit processes in order to try and get that over the line. A simple 70 grand mortgage. It was crazy times at that time. But the great thing about what happened then is the experience that we've gained, the knowledge that we've gained as a result of things that have happened in the past, is what we can take with us in the future, and that helps you as a buyer and a seller. That's exactly what it is. It's. I remember the story, Jimmy. You'll probably remember me telling you the story about, you know, Pablo Picasso a guy walks into the cafe. Pablo Picasso is sitting there in his chair, and he's just sitting having a coffee and enjoying the world. And as everything walks by outside the window, the guy goes, "Oh my God, you're Pablo Picasso." He says, "Could you draw anything for me? Just do something." He says, "Well, I've not got anything to write on." He says, "Well, what about just on that napkin?" He says, "Well, you know, I could do something on the napkin if you want." He says, yeah, absolutely. So he writes it down the napkin, he scribbles all that out, and he does a wee drawing for me and says, "Look, that'll be £1,000. And he looks at Pablo Picasso and says, "You only took 30 seconds to do that. How's that £1,000? Pablo Picasso said, No. I've not taken 30 seconds to do that. I've taken a whole lifetime to get to this stage, and I could produce that for you. That's what you're paying for." And that, my friends, is what you pay for in an experienced estate agent. It's the knowledge and experience and wealth of experience that actually comes with them to help you achieve what you want and what you want to do next. So, you know, it's the classic example about, you know, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the similar thing happens all over the place, not just with estate agents, but with tradespeople as well. And they say, oh, can you come and fit a worktop for me, please? I'll give you 50 quid for it. You know, and there's a huge amount of expertise in that needed to fit a worktop properly.
Yeah.
You know,
Let's get a couple of good mornings. Good morning, Anne-Marie. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Good morning, Angela. Nice to hear from you. Any questions, please feel free to ask. Anybody out there, if you're listening in and you're not sure about something, please ask the question. I'm happy to take questions. We don't necessarily show every single question on the screen. The reason for that is because some people like the anonymity, but they like to ask the questions, and it appears on the side of my profile, so I can actually see what's been asked. So it's easy for me to then relay that on the screen and then answer that question as well, or one of the team answer that question. So that can actually often lead to sales falling through and or hefty renegotiations of your price, which could threaten the purchase by shrinking your actual budget for your next property. So how can you tell if a value, Jimmy, how can you tell, here's the next steps, how can you tell if a valuation is inflated?
Well, there are some telltale signs, either at the point of valuation or when you've been on the market for a while, that your home has priced too high, basically. There are some red flags that I would look out for is if similar homes are on the market for less. So I would keep an eye on the market in your sort of price point and seeing what's coming on.
This is quite an interesting one, actually. I'll stop you there. You said that similar homes are on the market for less. Now, we had a recent one in East Neuk, didn't we? And I thought, oh my God, another estate agent put it on, and I thought, I'm going to buy that. And that's saying something, and that's going the other way. That's actually thinking, wait a minute, that's completely undervalued. But even by completely undervaluing it, they've lost out on the home report increase because it wasn't valued at the right price. So potentially, I mean, personally, I think it was undervalued by about £20,000. Yeah. So potentially that £20,000 has now been lost because the person that would want to buy that couldn't get the mortgage up to that value. So if it was undervalued, you just lost £20,000 in the valuation. And if anybody wanted to pay a bit extra, you're kind of goosed, because the extra was the extra they would have paid. They would have been able to finance through the home report.
Especially
so there's similar homes on the market, and it can go one way, it could go the other way as well. But you know, I mean, as I say, if I thought I should have bought it at that point in time and I was going to make them an offer, I kind of think it probably was undervalued, because hopefully I know my stuff. So hopefully, touch wood, yeah.
Well, that's it was in an area where we're very, very active in. So
yeah,
I would agree with you. And we've sold 1 bedrooms for the price they were selling a 3-bedroom for. Yeah. So I think that tells you all you need to know.
So what other things are red flags to watch out for?
If you're getting either no interest or just a trickle of inquiries.
Yeah.
So I'd speak to, if you're not hearing from your estate agent much, ring them and ask why and what's happening in the background, basically. And if nobody's coming back for a second look, in terms of a second viewing after their first viewing, there's another telltale sign. Not everybody does come back for a second viewing, but some people do. And also, if estate agents' boards are changing to sold around you, while yours are still saying full sale, I would say they're the 4 points that I would be looking out for.
Yeah. Now, can I qualify? You're either getting no interest at all or a trickle of inquiries. You know, the first 4 to 6 weeks are possibly the best time that will give you enough feedback to make a decision about your next strategy, if that is the case. So if you're not getting inquiries you should be getting in that beginning, and all the evidence in the beginning has been assessed and the valuation is correct, then that's when you should reassess your strategy with your estate agent, and after the 4 to 6 weeks have passed. And the reason for that is obviously because the market could be changing. There's a classic just now is like, you know, some people are getting told every single time we're going to go into a mega recession. And it's like, okay, so where's the evidence to suggest that? I don't see it just now, but that seems to be the thing coming through. So it does put a lot of people off, and they become hesitant as a result, because they immediately go, oh, scarce resources, and they start to hoard. So they start to stop spending, they start to stop making decisions that they should normally be making, because fear kicks in. False expectations appearing real. That's what fear stands for. So don't let that be. Don't be a victim of that. Make sure you look at the evidence and get the facts first before you make a conscious decision about what you should be doing next. Don't let other people make your decisions for you by driving that fear in your mind. So you can either get the no interest or interest or trickle inquiries, but that's the first 4 to 6 weeks. I'll tell you that. Estate agents board change the sold around you while yours stays for sale. Again, that's, well, why did it change the sold? Classic example for us is completely undervalued. No surprise there. I wouldn't even surprise. I've never even checked it after that, but I've got every belief it'll have probably gone to a closing date because of the price is far too low as a result.
It did.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that tells you straight away. I knew that method was going to. I mean, what will happen out of that is I know that type of way of doing estate agency. And what happens next is everybody goes, oh, they went to a closing date with that. They went to a closing date with that. It's like, okay, they went to a closing date with that, but I'm no surprise because it was completely undervalued. Again, look at the facts and the evidence before you actually make a decision about whether that's right or wrong. That is called manipulation by an estate agent. And it has been going on for years and years and years in the corporate world by corporate estate agents. It's a well-known tactic. For every board, they get 2 boards from it. And that's all they're interested in. That's all they want to do. Anyway, enough about that. So that's the evidence that you've got to suggest. You discuss it with your estate agent and make sure, as long as your estate agents keep in touch with you and tell you what's going on and give you the right information, the right facts to make these decisions, that's okay. What you should be worried about is where your estate agent goes completely quiet and never says a word to you and doesn't even return your calls. That's when you've got a problem. But we'll talk about that later on. So overvaluing has led to gaps as wide as 21% down south. That's mental. Between asking prices and selling prices. So that's the asking price they asked in the beginning and the selling price what it went for. I mean, it's quite common. Before home reports, we did this in exactly the same method in Scotland. Before home reports. So what we did was we looked at the market value, we looked at everything, we added a wee bit extra on, we said we'll test the market at that level. And that's what the English market does just now, because they don't have home reports. And that's why you tend to find the English market, everybody gets probably below or just about the valuation, the asking price they're asking for. So it's quite a common thing, because we do get that, Andrea, where we have English buyers going, you know, why am I paying more than the home report value?
And what's offers over?
Aye, what's offers over? And it's like, I don't think I should be paying any more than the home report value. And then we were explaining to them, but the home report value is outdated because some of that information that's got over the line that they're looking at is probably been agreed 6 months or even 12 months ago, especially pandemic level. Yeah. Pandemic level, you know, it was taking about a year to a year and a half for all the prices to actually hit the register. And so by the time they hit the register, the year came and a 16% uplift in prices went on. But most surveyors were going out and they're looking at the historical information and they weren't taking into account the fact that it had taken so long to get over the line. So they were actually just pricing their houses at the pre-pandemic level, which was without the 16% increase. So a lot of people out there were going, that seems awfully cheap in comparison to other ones. And it was because they had undervalued. That's the classic example, is what I said before. So excessive pricing simply slows everything down as well. So you have to make sure you get that right. Honest mistake or deliberate ploy, Andrea? What do you think?
Well, estate agents never really seem to have a very good reputation at the best of times. I think they're along there with the tax people.
You know what? It amazes me. It amazes me in a survey, right? A worldwide survey. The estate agency business and a real estate agent in America is the 4th most respected profession. A real estate agent in Britain is the 4th least respected profession. What does that say about how we operate as estate agents? Well, maybe not how we operate, but how generalization of estate agents operate. Maybe more regulations needed, tighter regulation, more legislation, more qualifications, insistence on qualifications. Because you can still start up as an estate agent and just actually, yeah, I'm an estate agent in the morning.
Get a company to print you up some boards with your name on it and hey.
Effectively, isn't it? And if you talk a good game and you're a good blogger, you'll get away with it.
Anyway, yeah, so honest mistake or deliberate ploy, that you will get some unreputable people out there that obviously the money is the main thing for them. And they don't make any, it's got no morals, a lot of people, you know, and they will give people false expectations. and people fall for that. And it's a shame. I think that we'll have to be truthful about how we get our prices, our values, and show them the results, and how we prove how we get it, so that we're not hiding anything.
I've had it in the past, and I'll tell you the recent the example I had in the past. This is before I was in the estate agent, before I had this business. I actually had a local estate agent. I saw the price that they had sold one of their properties for, and I phoned them up and said, wow, you got that for that property. I would probably put my house on the market if you can get that as well. And he went, I can get that, no bother. I can probably get more than that. Okay. So then put it on there. So then he phones me up and says, I've got an offer for you, and it's $5,000 below what you'd said. Hello? What happened to the conversation about, that's the price I was going to get you? I basically said, don't phone me unless you get that price or above. Now, eventually he got it, but it's the very fact that he felt that it was okay just to phone back. Now, that $5,000 difference, at that time, the property itself was only $40,000. So $5,000 is a huge difference in the price. $5,000 in the scope of things with something that's 100,000, 200,000, isn't it really, 200,000 is like 2.5%. It's not really majorly significant. But when you take into account that the property is only $40,000 and you're telling me you're getting $5,000 less, that is a huge difference in terms proportionally.
Yeah, it's a kick in the teeth, really, isn't it?
That was basically my experience, and that's kind of what led me into the estate agency world, because I just felt that it probably wasn't to be done right. So the valuations, agent valuations, are substantially higher than all the others. It's a worthwhile investigation with few well-chosen questions. What are these questions? What should you, Andrea? What should we be asking? What should people out there be asking estate agents?
How do they achieve the price in the first place that they're stating the value of the property? How many of their listings have they had to reduce the price on before they've sold? Things like how long are the homes on the market?
That's a really good one, isn't it? It's like, that would really identify if you're an overvaluer or not. And the fact that how many of your listings need to be reduced in price before they actually sell. That's a great one. I mean, the first one you said there, how many sales do they achieve at asking price or above? That's a really good one. But I would qualify that a wee bit more and say, how many sales do you achieve at home report value or above? Because asking price could be less than home report value.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Some actually, I know there's a well-known highfalutin, most of the highfalutin estate agents actually go, your house is valued at 320,000 or 500,000. Let's put it on at 450 and see how we get on. Sorry, you're immediately downgrading it by 50 grand. We've not even put it on yet. How do we know? How do we know that's the case?
There's another agent in Fife that does that, and my mindset is if people do that, the home report's that, and they're starting off at that must mean they're quite happy at that level if they've listed it at that level. So why am I going to offer that if they're happy at that level?
Well, my point is as well, it's just what you've said there, Jimmy, and just to re-emphasise that and say it in a wee bit a different way. If your home report says that's the valuation of the house, surely that's what you should be asking for in the first place, as offers over. Because why would you get a home report and the surveyor says that's the value of the house, and then you'd say, I tell you what, we'll put it a lot less. And people say it's often, we'll get more people in the door. It's like, but that's like saying, I tell you what, we're going to shoot for the stars, but I tell you what, we'll just jump to the moon first. Okay, so you're going to do two processes to get to the stars then. Why do you not just go straight for the stars and hit the moon on the way down? One process. Yeah? Makes sense? More efficient. It qualifies people immediately. It gets rid of the time wasters immediately as well, because nobody wants tire kickers around their house. They don't want people just coming around on a Sunday view and think, that looks a really beautiful house. Let's go and have a look at that. Even though we've not got the budget yet, or we don't know what our house is valued at, or we don't have a mortgage in principle either. We don't even know.
Or we're not moving.
Or we're not. Or I'll tell you what, we might move if it looks okay. But we've still not found out if we've got a mortgage, what our house is worth, and if we've got any money to actually put down as a deposit, and who our lender's going to be. That makes no sense. But that's why the qualification process is in place, isn't it, Jimmy?
100%. I would say that the team in general, they ask all these questions. A lot of people, why do you need to know that? And the question is, we want to make sure that we're taking qualified buyers to us. We don't want to have the questions from sellers, I've had X amount of viewings, why have I got any offers? And that's because half of them are just sent round just to make it look busy rather than actually qualified buyers that are going to make you an offer.
I would rather have 100 inquirers whittled down to 10 qualified buyers than actually have 80 people through the door on the premise that hopefully one of them will bite.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of time wasted, isn't it? When you could actually just whittle it down right to the 10 people and say, you're the 10 people that qualify for this. You're the 10 people that are in a position to do something about this. Let's go with that.
I think we always did qualify buyers, but I think when the pandemic happened, I think it actually did us all a huge favour, and our sellers, that the only people that were going to view houses were those that were in a very strong position to buy.
Yeah, and the great thing is, it's almost like the credit crunch has actually, the same thing with the credit crunch. What happened with the credit crunch, it said basically that if you're in a position to proceed, you could buy a house. That's what the credit crunch was born, that sort of mentality. So that allowed less people to get through the door. It wasn't really that interested. It made it more acceptable, put it that way. And then also what happened is the pandemic then moved it a wee bit further to say that unless you're actually in a position to proceed, then that's the only reason we'll take you through the door. Or if we've seen your house and we understand how much your house is worth, then we'll be able to convince our seller that yours worth a lot more. I mean, Dave says it actually quite good there. Is quality of the whole process reduces the stress of the whole process. Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. What's the other question then that you would want to say honest or deliberate mistake or deliberate ploy?
Well, a couple of other things are how long generally are their homes on the market before going under offer, and also question. What percentage of their listings get withdrawn. And I do think that a lot of serious house buyers do watch Rightmove and Zoopla really, really closely, and they could probably tell you better than some estate agents what the state of the market in the area that they're looking for is, and they do. Most people nowadays that have got the internet will do a lot of research themselves and exactly what's happening with the movement in the market.
See, so when I used to get, I don't get it anymore because people know straight away when I walk in the door that I'm the person for the job, and I know that myself. I just have to make sure they understand that is the case. So I don't do my job if they don't cover me. That's the reality. But most people will just sign up with me anyway because they know I'm doing it for the right purpose. But the one thing I always remember is I used to get years and years ago, and maybe Jimmy, you hear this sometimes, now and again, once in a blue moon, is oh, you've not sold as much properties in the area. Okay, so what is achieving the best price got to do with selling the most properties? Yeah, there's no correlation. Selling any idiot can sell the most properties, but not any idiot can get the best price. That's really what that comes down to. That takes expertise, that takes experience, that takes strong negotiation and good digital marketing. That's what that takes. That hits the right market, the right buyers. Often getting buyers that other people can't get, because what you're doing, your target market sometimes is people out there who have got absolutely no time to look at property listings, but they've got all the time in the world to pay the right price for the property, even more probably. And that's the people you want to get, because as a seller, you want to get the best price for your property. That's what it comes down to. Unless there's somebody out there as a seller that can tell me, oh, well, no, I don't want the best price for my property. I just want it sold as quick as possible with the cheapest estate agent. Hello, is that the right strategy to go for?
No, the cheapest isn't, and it has been proved time and time again, cheapest is not the best. You actually end up losing money instead of saving it.
Yeah, well, our average is 14% over home report. Everybody else's average apparently is, I know some estate agents are putting it through the doors and flyers. They're saying it 9%. So 14, 9%, 5% differential. So for every 100,000, if you're on with another estate agent, and you didn't pick us, on average, you're losing £5,000 for every 100,000. So if you've got a £300,000 house and then result on average, you probably lost £15,000 in your end result. That's a lot of money. Even the £5,000 is actually, wait a minute, you paid for everybody's fees and you got us for nothing. You got your estate agent for nothing because we got more. So if we're getting significantly more, that makes absolute sense. You'd go in a stage and get more. Hey, somebody else would maybe come along and say, well, we get 20% on average more. Good on you. I'd like to know what you do then, because I'll learn that as well. So with all the answers in hand, you'll know if the promise of an agent's pricing is matched by their performance. Again, all these are the most important things. I'll just cover them again. How many sales do you achieve at home report value or above? How many of the listings need to be reduced in price before they sell that you have? How long are your homes on the market before going under offer? And what percentage of your listings actually get withdrawn? The one thing you never listen to is we sell most houses in the area. These are the most important questions because anybody can sell a house in the area. Okay, so how do we protect ourselves with a get out clause? Jimmy?
So if you do appoint an agent who valued your home higher than all the others, make sure you protect yourself with a get out clause in the contract.
Yeah. What is that then? What is a get out clause?
So it's more on the contract. It'll be how many days, like a cooling off period. There will be, and there's normally if you've gone past the cooling off period, then you'll go to written notice to leave, and how many days that would be, or making sure that is in place on the contract at all if they do want to leave.
Yeah. So the average time to agree on a sale is currently around 3 weeks. So agents don't need to tie you down for months on end. Because I often in the past I've seen, I know some of the corporate estate agents are like, well, you're locked into us for 3 months.
Yeah.
Sorry. But you can't. So if you've got me and I've signed an agreement, and this is what happened in the credit crunch, I'll go back to that again because experience tells you everything. So what happened in the credit crunch when a lot of people were locked in and signed up, is I remember them coming to me and saying, I can't get out my contract. I'm in it for 3 months. And I've got to wait for them to try and sell my house for 3 months. And I've got no strategy at all. I'm stuck. And all they're telling me is keep reducing your price, keep reducing your price. And it's like, I've got nowhere else to go. Because then if I don't, if I do something different, I'm going to lose out. I'm going to end up paying 2 fees. It's like, so I remember all that frustration and all that heartache and all that pain that was caused by people and because of locked into contracts. So, it's something to check, isn't it? So what sort of checklist, Jimmy, should negotiate a shorter agreement?
Well, you can do. You can always offer an initial contract length or of no more than 4 weeks.
So even though they've got 3 months as a contract length, you can actually say to them, I tell you what, let's look at that and we'll revise it. I'll sign up with you if you do 4 weeks.
Of course. There's no reason why you can't do that, of course. We do that sometimes when we do that. And some people say that it's almost like if they're confident of their selling, they've got the results going on to overvalue, and then they should be able to put their money where their mouth is as such, if that makes sense. If they're confident of doing that.
Yeah.
And we've done that a few times before, especially on prices on terms of prices being achieved, where when we've gone up against other agents as well, we think it's going to get this, and we've said, well, if it's this, we'll do this, etc., and it's all paid out in the end.
Yeah. Okay. So what other things?
So the check the notice period. Some ask for a month. You should be free to go whenever you choose, but don't agree to anything longer than 7 days.
Yeah.
Confirm you won't be liable for any marketing costs if you choose to switch agents after your initial interim.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is get all agreed changes in writing.
Yeah. I mean, if an agent truly believes that their high valuation is achievable, You'll have no trouble in amending these terms, won't they? And if they insist on signing you up for several months, you'll have an insight into how confident they really are.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying by putting your money where your mouth is, really. Back it up if they can do what it says on the tin, basically.
So, Andrea, here it comes down to it. So, here's the golden question. Is there a time to switch agents?
I think people have to have a really good relationship with their estate agent. I think you almost have to make them your best friend, because you have to be able to speak to them. You have to be able to understand that they're the expert and they're doing the job for you. And I think if you're not getting on with your estate agent, then yes, it probably is time to move. If the estate agent that you've signed up with and you feel they've overvalued your property and they've been taking your money, and they've not been providing you with the end result, then yes, it's time to change. But I wouldn't leave your agent until you've got something set up ready to transfer right over to your new agent, because you have to protect your home report.
Yeah, I think it's a case of often having that candid conversation with your estate agent, and seeing where you stand with them. A lot will depend on whether you still have faith in them. You obviously said that. So, have that kind of conversation. They'll naturally want you to stay with them, but it's worth considering some of the benefits of switching before making your final decision. Your home will immediately be relabeled as a new listing on the property portals, giving you a completely fresh start. That's often quite a good one. I've done that in the past. I've said, I tell you what, and I tell you what we do, and most estate agents will probably nick this now. We then put it on as a new listing, and it comes up and it goes out to everybody all over again, because we know how to manipulate the systems in order to do that. So it can look like a completely new listing for the very first time by moving things about and rejigging stuff. A new property coming onto the market is the most exciting time for estate agents, and it brings with it the new energy and enthusiasm. Here's another one: new photographs, new angles, or perhaps with rearranging some furniture or accessories can give your online advert a game-changing makeover. Remember, something's definitely wrong if you're not receiving offers. There are too many buyers right now for any home to stick on the market. So a new agent with a new approach could just be the ticket to getting to moving back on track. I feel that that's probably the best advice we can give people. But again, we say to you, go back and speak to your estate agent and see what their thoughts are. That's a blanket statement, but what you have to understand, listen to your estate agent, and if you feel that they're giving you the right information, the right facts, and there's no reason why you shouldn't stay with them. But if you don't feel that they're communicating with you, they don't do the right things, then there's no reason why you should not feel that you should be leaving them and going somewhere else at that point in time. Especially in a market like this where it's so buoyant. So you have to take on your estate agent's advice and make sure you're right and the right understanding. Now, Dave actually said this quite well. Trusting, understanding, and belief in the agency is key. Absolutely, Dave. I believe that 100%. So let's wrap up here. What's your final thoughts on this, Jimmy? If you were talking to someone out there, it's possibly they're confused. Their house is still on the market. They're not really sure what they're doing. They've tried to speak to their estate agent, but they're not getting that right communication. What do you think? What do you think you should be doing?
If they're on the market and it's sticking, I would be having a look at what's selling. Have a look at what's around, probably within a half a mile, unless it's quite rural. See what's on the market, what's the price at, see if it's compatible to what you have.
Yeah.
If it is and yours is still sticking, have a look at what their listing is compared to yours, and then possibly get a couple other estate agents out to get a fresh approach and ask them what they would do differently if they're not getting any feedback from their current agent. And as we've been discussing, don't always go for the one that's selling the most in your area. I would go and try a couple and see although they're selling the most in the area, see what the other ones are achieving over the home report value, because they may have a different strategy to every other agent, like we do. So I think getting the information is key, and then making a decision from there. And the good thing about this is, which I can't quite believe, is all this information is free. Speaking to all these agents as well, you don't even having the conversations is free. Getting other agents help. So why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Andrea, what's your thoughts on this?
I think if you're looking to put your property on the market, do a little bit of research first of your own. Have a look at, see what the other agents are doing. As I say, the main number of sales is not the most important thing. Word of mouth is often very good. See if they're up to date with their technology and what they're doing. You know, we've taken sales. We've agreed sales that other agents haven't been able to get because we've been implementing the technology that we use and the social media aspect of things. That is the way things are going.
Yeah. Okay, my final thoughts on this is probably if your home isn't selling or you've received a valuation much higher than you actually expected and the evidence isn't there, they've not shown you the evidence to that effect, and it's not in line with the recent sales that you can see on websites and that, get in touch with us for another opinion. Really, that's what it comes down to. It costs you, it's like what you said, Jimmy, it costs you no effort at all. It doesn't cost you any money to get the second opinion. And if the second opinion is exactly the same as the first opinion, you know the first opinion is right, and go with them if that's the case, if that's the right person for you. But just make sure. I mean, I've even had other people say you were conflicting with the other one, so I'm going to get a third opinion. And then they would get a third opinion, and it's, you know, that would probably marry up with one of the other ones, and they would go, okay, that's probably more likely to where it is. But often, you know, it's a done deal when I walk in the door to say that, you know, that's your valuation, there's what it's based on, it's that, and that. Show all the evidence in front of them, and there's no doubt about it, that is the valuation of the property. If you're selling a house next door for 250,000, and that is the price of that house, and you've got exactly the same house next door to them, and you put yours up for sale, the home report is going to be 250,000 because next door is just sold for 250,000. Unless you've got something significantly more, like maybe you've got a new kitchen or a new bathroom, you've maybe got decking out the back, you've maybe put a monoblock drive in, you've maybe put, you know, electric doors on the garage and all these different things. Unless you've added value that way, there's no way it could be any more as a result of the 250,000 for a home report valuation, unless, and I'm not going to say that after that, unless. You'll have to contact me to find out what I was going to say next if you really want to know the answer to that question and how to do that next. Anyway, that's us, guys. Thanks very much for coming on the show, and thanks everybody else for watching, and it's bye-bye for now from everybody.
Have a great day, guys.